Okay, we're now recording to the cloud. And I am going to share the browser. Okay, there we go. And welcome everyone to the October 26th MicroProfile live Hangout. A link to the chat, to the meeting minutes is in the chat. Yes, no? Can someone paste that, please?
Oh, 26.
And,
yeah, just, okay, there it is.
And please click on the link and add yourself to the list of participants in the meeting.
Oh, I know. Let's see.
All right, and this meeting is being recorded, and the chat and the video will be uploaded to the YouTube channel after the call, typically within a day or so. Okay, so I guess EclipseCon is still going on right now?
Yes.
True.
Yeah,
Right.
EclipseCon is going on. I don't have the link to the recordings yet, but the recordings of the main day conferences will be available. As soon as I have it, I will share with everyone.
Cool. Actually, yeah, when you have a link to it all, just paste it to the MicroProfile group, Google group. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Okay, I'd like to, first of all, start the call with an apology. I was supposed to send out a note to everyone to review the program plan and get feedback. And I wrote the email, and then I was interrupted by a security update, which I installed, and I never actually sent it. I thought I did, and it was sitting in my draft. So it is, I do have it written here, ready to send after this call. So I apologize for that. I will send it with getting feedback for this by the end of the week. Since I think by next Tuesday, we're going to have to definitely be final on it. Because November 5th is the deadline. Okay. Okay. So let's switch over.
John,
Yes.
let me interject here. We did say that the vote will be via email through the working group, and it might be 72 hours to allow for feedback to come in before that. So I think in that call, like a month or so ago, early this month, everyone was like, that sounds okay. So I just wanted to make sure that it's recapped here for those of you that were in vacation.
Yes, we don't take vacation. We're very dedicated people here. Okay, so I think we ended here on the infrastructure and website goals slide, and I was going to start with the technical section, if that's okay with everyone. David, I think you're trying to talk and I don't hear you, and you're not on mute, I don't think.
Okay. Yeah.
There you go.
On device. Yeah, we can skip this and come back to it when there's time.
Okay.
It's not the most pressing thing.
Gotcha. All right. So technical goals. Who kind of had the lead on technical goals? I think Emily was one. I think I don't know if Emily's here today. Roberto, I think
it was me. Yeah, it was me and Emily. Yeah.
I do see Emily here today.
Yeah.
Oh, she is. I'm sorry, Emily.
I even said hello to you.
Yes, you did. Well, the participant window is over your icon. I was looking to see if you were still here. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, Roberto. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I guess it's safe to say that regarding technical goals, at least from the ones here on this slide, we haven't done much, unfortunately. Only the last couple of weeks is where some of these work started regarding tracing and metrics. So naturally, tracing and metrics will continue be worked on for next year. This raises the topic where I'm not exactly sure if this is like the convenient time to bring that up, even though I did bring that up in last week's call about how should we look into these technical goals, right? In the sense that I've seen, at least I think that we are operating a little bit differently on what we usually did. Maybe because this is like the first time that we are now coming into a place where we want to deprecate or remove specifications, right? While before we were just adding stuff. Now, I think that one of the one thing that we really need to clarify is how do we operate at this level, in the sense that it seems that we have two opposite ways. So one is a part of the community wants to move forward and break stuff, and one part of the community wants to just keep compatibility as much as possible and come up with migration paths and code migrations for things that should be moved on, right? And I think that's something that we need to clarify and make a decision. And of course, this may be a decision that comes up to each project group. So I'm calling project like OpenTelemetry or metrics or module or whatever you want to call that. But I also believe that we should have a more general guideline about it. So then, because then we are just going to have these endless discussion on how to move forward. And it is my belief that sometimes we end up having somehow a Jakarta mindset over here, while this is not, in my opinion, the goal of MicroProfile, right? Now we see other so this is for tracing metrics and how things are being operating on those areas. Converters itself, it does bring me up on another matter, and also another one that's on another side, which is gRPC, which is the collaboration and how we decide what goes to Jakarta and what stays in MicroProfile, right? So initially, both converters and gRPC were supposed to come to MicroProfile. Now we altered those efforts because there was discussions that people wanted to do things. We wanted to do converters on Jakarta and then gRPC on Jakarta as well. And I believe we don't really have a good way to decide which go where. And ultimately, this becomes, instead of being collaborations, becomes competition, right? So another thing that I mentioned the last week's call was that I thought that MicroProfile was losing value because we've seen that MicroProfile config is moving to Jakarta. REST client will move to Jakarta. Some pieces of context propagation also move to Jakarta. Open tracing, it's an abandoned spec at this point, or in maintenance. Well, I'll almost say abandoned because everyone that was working on that moved on, not on the MicroProfile side, but in the actual open tracing project. Metrics is going in the same route. So in all the essence from the 8 platform specs, we only have 4 useful specs in my opinion, right? So we lose some value over there. And if we don't add new value, then it's going to be hard to actually comply with, well, not comply, but at least fulfill all the other goals that we have, right? So how are you able to attract new developers and make something popular when instead of you adding value, just removing value from it? So converters and gRPC were some ideas that we had last year to add during this year, some things that we believe that will add value to MicroProfile. But if they move to Jakarta, or if they're done in Jakarta, then once again, we see the problem where Jakarta is competing with MicroProfile. And I'm not and right now I'm not discussing if these should belong in one or the other. I'm just saying that it happened on these specifications or in these ideas, so it may happen with other ideas as well. And in the end, what we're seeing is a devaluation of MicroProfile value as a whole, instead of us increasing the value by adding some new stuff. So I think that we also need to clarify, in first of all, what we should do with converters and gRPC, and second of all, how are we going to decide? Because in my mind, at least, the converters and gRPC things for MicroProfile, there was not a clear process to decide where should they go, right? It was just says in a few calls, oh, we want to do this in Jakarta, so we're going to do it over there, and that was it, right?
But Roberto, I get this. Let me interject here. We don't have the process for transferring projects to the Jakarta side, or vice versa for the Jakarta project coming into MicroProfile. So I have no idea why are we saying that things have been decided when the steering committee is the one that gets to vote. If no vote has happened, that is not.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying that there was nothing started yet regarding these packs, right? So there was just intention on both groups, on a side of the group from MicroProfile to work on converters to gRPC, and there is an intention from the Jakarta side to also work on gRPC and converters on the Jakarta side, right? So now, instead of having collaboration, you see competition, in my opinion, at least, right?
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
the idea, because you for me, it doesn't make much sense to have both of these happen in both groups, right? They should end in one. And when you have an idea, which is not a specification yet, just something that you want to start, and both groups are interested in starting that up, how do you decide which one's going to take that?
So let me add a little bit, opinion on this. One thing is for the rest of the client, I don't think we have discussed. I don't think it's a good idea to move, but we ought to discuss that. The other thing is when you say open tracing and metrics is going to be abandoned, I think we could see from from the other perspective is saying, okay, the dependency moved on, and then we come up with a different approach. So we quickly move on to open telemetry. We quickly move on to macrometer. So from this, if we don't do anything, yes, that's kind of the devalue MicroProfile. However, if we come up with this approach and quickly realign, this is the kind of demonstrate how quickly we can move. So the third thing regarding where to start this new stack, I think this is good to discuss this, and for one quick response from me is if you have a dependency, I think for gRPC it does have a dependency on the overall gRPC practice and etc. I think it's better off to be in MicroProfile. If there's no dependency whatsoever, and then will be potentially used by Jakarta, probably that spec is better off to be in the Jakarta land. So it's but you are right. Like when creating the new spec, we have to think what's their dependency and which spec would potentially use it, and then we put it in the right place.
Emily, sometimes this is not your decision that to create a spec. You always say we decide. This is a decision of a team who wants to make the spec, right? And the team makes decision. Does it go to MicroProfile or it goes to Jakarta, right? So if the group creates a spec, then yes, that's possible to make the decision. But if someone else, then it's up to these people to decide. That's my first comment. Another comment.
I would agree on that.
I just want to correct. It's up to the team to propose
it's up to the team to propose, but if they reject, this is a competition. This is what Roberto is saying. And to be fair, I think there is only one way to remove this competition is to join. If MicroProfile joins Jakarta in the conditions proposed by Steve Miller's blog post about a year ago, maybe a year and a half, it would solve everything.
Why doesn't Jakarta just join MicroProfile? Was it came around first?
That's can be many options. I don't think that Jakarta will join MicroProfile, but if it's one group instead of two, it will solve all the problems.
Dimitri,
It does not solve all
It
the
solves
problems.
these types
Dimitri-
of problems. And Dimitri, you're right. That would be my point too. The platform decisions are made in these two groups aligned loosely. But the team has the decision where to work and convince the platform to join at the end. And that's really important. And if there are technical reasons, good technical reasons to do it in another way than the original expected way, then that's perfectly fine for me.
so everyone, I'm going to pull it here. We are so off topic. We don't have the time for this minutia, and it's important to talk about this. We need the technical goals now because we need to vote on this next week.
I don't
And
think it's really off topic, Amelia, to be fair, right? Because Roberto made a point that
he made a point, but now you
yes.
have suggested the MicroProfile should just, the two groups should just join together. And this is recorded, Dimitri. So we need to be extremely careful because we can say anything we want. However, we worked extremely hard to keep MicroProfile independent of Jakarta for many reasons. And every single time we push it and use that as a concept of logical agreement, like, yeah, you see my point, let's do this way. It detracts for what we need to do now. That is technical goals. Roberto said, let's put something in place that tell us the mapping of how we deprecate. That would be a technical goal. How do we deprecate specs? How do we transfer specs to whatever?
Let's get on a second. You are trying to solve the thing, not the problem in general, right? We can decide about technical goals, but Roberto questions will still be there, right? And if you touch the history, MicroProfile was created, then Java EE was kind of stopped or paused, right? So it was kind of a natural way forward of Java EE, right? So
but it was
Yes,
also
thank you.
designed to not be Java EE. It was designed not to be the JCP, right?
Right.
And it was designed to be a very flat, community-oriented infrastructure, and that's how I see it. I think there's non-technical reasons, and for the same reason I really wanted this in the CN4J slides, is there's very non-technical reasons why we want microprofiles. So. Sorry, David, I don't know, you were going to add something.
No, I was going to agree with you. And, also part of those reasons, also part of the vision was, we would create technology and some of it may graduate into the JCP, right? So what's happening is the plan. That doesn't necessarily mean that a whole lot of stuff has to leave very quickly. But the occasional thing graduating or shifting over from one side to the other is, what we had imagined would be the case on occasion.
Sorry, the only correction I'd make is, at least from a Red Hat perspective, we didn't see it graduating to the JCP. We said graduate to a standards standards body.
Sure.
So Jakarta is not the JCP, and there's a fairly good representation of Jakarta EE leadership here, right? So we have crafted Jakarta EE in a community vision. So there have been substantial changes to how all of that works, right? So please, I would, I guess, I think it's reasonable to continue having this discussion. We don't have to make any decisions today or for these goals, but it is reasonable to continue this having that debate.
Yeah, so let me clarify something here. So the reason why I understand why people are getting frustrated and having these separate discussions, but the reason why we having these separate discussions, and I did point that out on the last call as well, was we never had a retrospective of the year, right? So we kind of like doing, so for me, it doesn't make much sense for us to define technical goals without looking at what happened during the year, right? So we have to look into the past, and that has to be part of the discussion. So we know what needs to change, and we know what we need to adjust, right? So for me, it doesn't make much sense to say, well, we're gonna add converters or gRPC or whatever other specification or whatever other idea that we want to add here on technical goals, and in the end, it goes into Jakarta, right? So that needs to be clarified on how a new idea, where does that go? And second, and these might be I agree with Dimitri in a few ideas that he posted over there when he says that that's the group that decides, right? We need to be very careful on that, because if the group decides on where a new idea goes, and we know that we might have to move that into Jakarta later on if you start in MicroProfile like we did with config, then in most situations, people will probably prefer to do that in Jakarta straight away, just to save any migration or move pain, right?
Roberto, this is exactly, I was thinking about that too. So maybe if it would be possible to use Jakarta namespace for the spec, it would solve the problem.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. We don't want to go. I mean, we are facing the CD situation in MicroProfile config to Jakarta config, right? And it's just going to be a pain for everyone, right? So the namespace is something really, as we can see with Javax to Jakarta, right? So we don't want to have to go with a decision between MicroProfile and Jakarta, right? So that's something that we probably have to discuss. Sorry, go ahead, John.
No, that's all right. Kevin's using the nice polite way and raising his hand. Where I've just been ignoring everyone's, talking over everyone. So sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
No, thanks. I was trying to interrupt before, but I just couldn't get in. So thanks, John. So I'm going to go back to Amelia's topic that I think we are going way down into a rat hole here. I think when we started, I don't know who was typing, if it was John, but on the technical goals here, there was a defined specification deprecation policy. There was another bullet on there. The breaking change policy. I think those are the type of things that we need for our technical goals. You can tell by this conversation that we are not going to come to any conclusion here in the next 5 minutes. And this is a big thing that that affects our community, and it could affect Jakarta EE. But, I just think that we are going way much into, too much detail for this program plan. And so
Thank you, John.
Okay.
His name
And
is
I
Kevin.
think these
Kevin. Seriously, John.
I don't even
Heiko
give
had his
thanks.
hand up. Heiko had his hand up. I don't know if you have a comment. And Kevin, you could always put your hand down when you're done.
Yep, I will.
It was a bit
Heiko?
of an addition to the previous with namespace or not namespace. MicroProfile, we started also to be quick, to have quick iterations, quick progress, quick rounds. I have obviously no clue how it's working in Jakarta. I know it was a pain in the past, in the history. So this is, I think, still something we want to achieve and strive for, to be pretty quick in stuff and trying out stuff, and then perhaps graduate it over or whatever. But I think that goal was successful in the past, and we should keep it.
So I'm trying to figure out how to turn these into items on technical goals, because in some cases, these are things that we already do, like reviews. We already have kind of a breaking change policy, which is it's okay to break change, to do breaking changes. Typically, we only did them in the June, July release. I guess it's July release. where we tried to do major versions that were breaking change releases. That's kind of been our policy. So I deleted that because we kind of already have a policy. Same thing, I think, with rapid iterations. It's just something that I think it's actually it might even be in the charter. It was one of our principles. I can't remember. But that's been something that we've been doing. But we don't have a deprecation policy that I know of.
Yeah, but John, since we started the work on the working group 2020, we have failed completely to have the 3 releases a year. So I think it's important for us to re-add it, fast iterations. We already have the 3 releases in this program, but I think here is also extremely important to repeat the message that we will go back to 3 releases per year, and we can
So we
even
have that in the strategic goals.
Yeah, but it's one thing, and now we're in technical. Technical means we will produce new features and new releases.
I think our technical goals should be more specific to what technical areas of the industry do we wish to address.
Yeah, all these other things are organizational goals, and I wouldn't see them here at these slides.
Yeah. I think the other technical goal is how to innovate faster. So basically, it's like last year we had 0 new things. Like this technical goal, we really need to to be rapid innovation. So I mean, based on the previous conversation, we need to establish a policy how to create a new, address new challenges. Look at just look at our focus area, like cloud native, where we want to focus.
Yeah.
And this is hard to be actionable on, right? This is actionable, right?
I believe that's not really a goal. That's just a mindset, right?
So how can we move? Maybe it's put in the rapid innovation in the slide 2. Strategic goal.
Well, we kind of have that here, right?
But
3 releases.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean you have new things like a new.
Correct. Emily,
they could, we could have 3 releases of incremental.
I'm going to be biased here. Yesterday, when I was on the marketing call for MicroProfile, when the idea of having a mini white paper on MP5 came up as one way to spend the money, it totally kind of hurt. Like the idea that we will think that is valuable.
Why is that getting? Can you get to this? Why are you presenting that? Because we don't need more topics.
The point that we need to do is create the technology that means to releases and innovation. That means not to release it, because Emily is correct. We can release hell of things without any new features. So can we, in technical side, can we just say we will create code that is valuable? We will fix, we should be adding deletions of code that no longer works.
All right. Well, I have a concrete technical goal to propose. As an objective for 2022, we definitely need to get everyone shifted over to the Jakarta namespace. We have a whole user base that's on the JavaX namespace right now. We're working towards our 5 release. Once we release that, that doesn't necessarily mean the industry is going to shift over.
So you're saying
we need to get all of our implementations over to the 5.0 release, and we need to get all of our users over to the 5.0 release, or as many of them as we can.
Okay, is that a technical goal?
And what concrete actions will be then there to achieve that?
Well, that we would need to think of those.
So you are suggesting encourage implementations of MicroProfile 5.0. Encourage more implementations, right? For MicroProfile 5.0.
Well, that is a technical thing.
It's not technical, it's more marketing.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's kind of what I was thinking too.
Well, I mean, we may have technical things that you need to do there, like does start.io need to shift over? I mean, is there work that we can do to get that done.
Yeah.
The starter.io, that's the kind of will implicitly will pick up all the releases. So that's the kind of.
We can't just. What I'm commenting is that it's a goal. We can't just assume it's going to happen, because if we don't deliberately think about it, it isn't going to occur. At least
Yeah.
And my comment on that, well, I believe it's a technical goal, is not a goal for this group, because ultimately you cannot force any implementation to move to the Jakarta namespace, right? This group cannot force any implementation to do it. So we already saying that I mean, when you have a goal that it may fail without you, I mean, there is nothing you can do to force people to do it, right? So it's already a
there's
goal
nothing we
that
can do
may
to
fail.
force people to, but that argument can be used to negate the entire program plan.
No, because for instance,
can-
tracing is something that's on your control. So I mean, nothing is stopping you to come up and create the tracing specification.
Right,
Right.
but we can't, like we got a bunch of marketing goals. We could just shoot them all down saying, well, we can't force people to use MicroProfile. Like the whole marketing slide would be just deleted because we can't force people to do anything.
I think I can add that as one of the atomy marketing side. I think that's would be fun. But I mean, for technical goal, I think is kind of what kind of technical focus from this community. But depending on which implementation we'll take in, I think all we can do is encourage them. But
Exactly.
I think it in more in the marketing side. But I do have a technical goal though. I think the MicroProfile hasn't got a solution for the database access. Maybe we should think about whether we can adopt GPA or explore R2DBC.
It's on the next slide.
Yeah, is it? Oh yeah, okay.
You have a second, yeah, you mentioned it last year already. It's on
Okay.
the second slide.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So
but that's one of the goals.
right, okay, thank you. I forgot it's on the second slide. So in here, like a converter and gRPC, can we just generalize the saying, establish a way to propose determine the new specs? So what are we going to do with the converter and the gRPC?
Well, we could still leave them here as technical goals, and where they happen remains to be determined. There were technical goals last year, and until we have a decision, we could still have it be a technical goal under MicroProfile.
Yeah, sounds fine. And we could delete. We can delete the 5th bullet point though. The MicroProfile Jakarta, like rebase Jakarta E9.
Yeah,
So
I think we've mostly got. Yeah, we've accomplished this one.
Yeah.
Yes, +1.
And then we
coming back to David's comment, then David offered that actually what that he's offering to move all specs to Jakarta namespace. But
no, that's not what I said. I excuse me. I don't mean that the package should change from org MicroProfile, org Eclipse MicroProfile to the Jakarta one. I mean, we have 5.0 coming out where we were using Java X, and now we should be using Jakarta.
Fine.
So that was the context of the comment.
So so let's put that down as a goal. Adopt Jakarta. Let me type this here. We could reword it to just get the thought down. Namespace.
Where Java X is used.
Yeah, across assets. Yeah.
Yeah, that very vague is good.
But you still need to mention that it was, from Java X, otherwise we're going to get confusion.
Yes.
That we just occurred.
Exactly. Oops. From Java X ***.
So we're doing that. I mean, obviously 5.0 was about that, but we will have to build start IO, and all of our examples are going to have to switch. I mean, there's coding work that has to be done still.
Yep. And that's what Heiko and I were kind of in the chatting about. But white paper, stuff like that are going to need kind of an update.
Like all of our assets, as you pointed out, you
Yeah.
know, like everything is still
Okay.
on JavaX. So
Our white paper, as I mentioned before, the writer is ready whenever we are for new technology. Like he's just waiting for us to pull him in. Because it's a pro bono and we have the white paper ready, but it needs to be reworked. So that would be no problem. And we can create many other things within the community. I don't want, you know, when we talk about technical goals and then it goes into marketing, I'm afraid for MicroProfile to become a Eclipse Foundation services project, as many others are. The goal for MicroProfile is to make sure that the community is the one doing the work and getting the things for doing the work. We want to be involved.
I think,
right?
I think if we want to keep things focused on technical, then let's keep things
Yes.
focused on technical,
So this-
not be bringing up non-technical things that we don't want to occur and be talking about things we don't want to
It just
occur, right?
follows into technical as well. But
Yeah, but
Sorry.
I understand. It's like there's neurolinguistic programming going on here. If I say don't think of a pink elephant and I say let's not talk about pink elephants, we're talking about pink elephants.
I get it. Thank
Okay?
you.
So
Okay. So tracing
we
and
need-
metrics.
I
Sorry,
think
but
we should,
are we keeping these the way they are? 'Cause
yeah, I
They
think,
both kind of need to be.
yeah. And recently we did make some progress with that. So
Right.
And do we need the first point at all? And especially here, don't think so.
Well, I do think we need a policy on deprecation, right? I think metrics and, you know, the old metric spec is an example of that. If we end up doing it, now we do like to we don't like to prematurely optimize for things that haven't happened yet, right? That's kind of been a long policy here. So we, you know, if we think that some of these older specs are going to no longer be maintained or just be maintained and not move forward, I don't know. You know, do we need to define a deprecation policy next year?
well,
Didn't
and
we-
also I guess I would add to that, if they're still being used, it doesn't matter. If they're being maintained, like implementations are still supporting them and they're still getting used, why would they be deprecated?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
and I
deprecation,
just, I'm sorry, go
So,
ahead, Edwin.
yeah, so deprecation could also be just take them out the platform specification, right? So that they're still around in the MicroProfile space, but not being part of the platform anymore. For
Yeah, but
example,
something has to, in order for you to deprecate something that's getting used, you have to replace it with something.
yes, I agree.
yeah,
Well,
probably.
Not always.
I mean,
Right?
what's the point? It's like, hey, this is
The
fine.
Java
You're
management
successful, you're
extensions?
using this, but we're not going to continue to add new
Yeah.
features. It works, but you can't use it anymore. Consider it deprecated.
Oh,
What
no,
you
no.
do next?
Okay, okay.
Who knows?
A suggestion.
Well, I've
Uh,
actually thought about it. I actually think this is already defined in the Eclipse development process. Now that I think about it.
Maybe we
I
should
actually
talk with
think-
customers, what customers think about deprecation policy. What
Yeah, I think-
implementations think about deprecation policy. So our customers are ready to abandon, let's say, metric spec, tracing spec to open telemetry.
Mhm.
Are we ready to
Yeah.
switch? Right?
I agree with you, by the way. Definitely it would have to come
That's the
from
question.
customers and
Probably-
vendors. But I
Probably
I-
think I'm gonna
deprecation.
remove this. I think it's premature to have this.
Yeah.
No,
I
not,
think
not exactly. I think deprecation is not the right word. The problem, the what you want over there is how to move things outside the platform, right? So, for instance, in the case of open tracing, people can still use open tracing, but if we keep open tracing in the platform, we're just in this moment. This is my opinion, and this goes with the mindset of just doing things a la Jakarta way or MicroProfile way. But if we keep pushing tracing in the platform, we're just saying, well, tracing is fine for you to use. Well, it's definitely not, right? We want people to move to other stuff. So deprecation is not the right word. Maybe just transition, yeah. Because we want to have a clear process, or at least to have a clear way where you can just with the right conditions say, this specification is going to move outside the platform, and you can still use it, and implementation can still support as much as they want, but at least remove the burden of the platform have to carry that when we know that's no longer going to be updated by the original specification. Right. In this particular case of OpenTrace on OpenTrace, it was when it was supported by an external specification, right?
Depending on how you put it, I don't really want to make this into a long running off track conversation. But my view is the same as David. Before the customer saying, "Oh, I don't need this anymore," my use case, nobody will use this. And then that's kind of transition and etc. And then if there's a upstream change, we should come up with alternative before we remove.
Yeah, but I mean the problem is that your customers may not be David's customers and may not be my customers, right? So you may have your customers saying that they want it, and then my customer says that they don't want them. So we cannot only base the decision on customers. And remember, you as an implementer, you are free to support wherever you want. So for instance, when I proposed to move OpenTrace from the platform, the only breaking change that it was going to make was people have to add a new dependency on their POM only if they were using the Open Tracing API. And even since it was kind of like I raised hell by suggesting something like this because everyone was against it, right? And but we have to be more open to these kind of suggestions, right? Even so, in that particular case, no one will stop you to keep pushing open tracing in your implementation and don't breaking any customer, right? But at least give the platform the option to evolve.
I think we already discussed this in a few weeks ago.
Yeah, but I'm just giving you an example, right?
So I'll tell you what, I'm going to put a pause on this discussion just so we can kind of keep moving forward. Let's see if we can continue this discussion throughout the week and hopefully have a conclusion to this discussion by next week. Well, we need a conclusion to the discussion by next week. I'm going to put it that way. David, it looks like you're going to say something.
Yeah, well, so so sounds like we're specifically talking about open tracing. Is that really the topic at hand?
Well, tracing was an example, right? So you can.
Are there other examples?
Matrix is another one, right?
Okay, well then let's specifically put a technical goal to talk about the future of both of those things.
And they're already there.
Then we don't need a policy, right? You know.
All right.
I mean, I just, like, we don't have a lot of time. So when we talk about policies, but then we don't talk about the specific cases, I always get very frustrated.
Yeah, I get frustrated when I start speaking about specifics, and then we say we're getting too much detail, and then when we get to detail,
well,
then
it's because we're talking about program planning time, so this is not the time for the detail. But if those things need to be addressed, we should put them in our technical goals to address the future of those two things.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think it doesn't need to put in the solution in the technical goal. So it's yeah.
So we all agree that we want to exclude deprecation policy topic.
Yes. I think it's
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, suggest
we
look
maybe come up with some sort of policy after we address those two things, but it just in the interest of being direct, like let's talk about those two specs specifically. See what makes sense for them. And if there's a pattern that emerges, then a policy is created from the pattern, but we don't have a pattern yet.
Exactly, because that pattern works, then we can adopt it like a specification.
So basically you are saying, David, that in the technical goals, we will have solve issues with tracing and solve issues with metrics and somehow, right?
Somehow.
And without any technical details. It works fine with me. I think it's a nice goal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we write it?
So next slide. moving forward.
Did we write that down?
Just hang on a
Well,
second.
we already
Just hang on
did
a second.
I thought these.
No.
Go ahead,
We
Dimitri.
have converters in gRPC, right? And it looks like the specs are in Jakarta namespace. So I would, as a goal, say that just participate in the spec. Just do the spec, right? It doesn't really matter what namespace it is. It's MicroProfile, fine. If it's in Jakarta, it's fine too, because MicroProfile developers will participate there anyway, right? And I think it's a kind of nice goal to have.
Yeah, I think these are generic enough to not be, you know, specific around namespace or where.
Well,
I would remove all sub-bullets. I would say tracing metrics, converters, gRPC with some introduction word like evolve or introduce or whatever else will work on. And that's it. No sub-bullets.
That's fine. No sub-bullets is okay. I would just comment that, you know, there haven't been any votes yet for those specifications. So they're not specifications yet. So nothing has actually been created in that namespace.
Yeah.
So it's fine for us to leave them as bullets until such time that there is a project established in either side.
So what do you think about that wording? Evaluate need for G.
That's fine.
Yep.
By the way, gRPC proposal is in Jakarta, so you can clearly add yourself or ask to add people as committers.
Sure, but it's not a spec yet, right?
It's not
up for vote.
Yes.
Yeah, I prefer to leave the wording as is.
It looks really clean.
Okay, technical goals, 2 of 2. Roberto, I don't know if you want to leave this slide at all.
Yeah, I think the Jakarta annotations are already being added to the dependencies. Well, adoption of Jakarta specs, I mean, that's something that we discussed last year, and I think it's still valid. I believe that maybe what we want to change over here is alignment with Jakarta core profile, which we don't exactly know when that is coming. But I think that the core profile in Jakarta is going to make things more clear on what we want to start to consume from Jakarta, right? So we know that the base specs that we already consume are all going to be there, and plus Jakarta config. And I'm not exactly sure if the list is already closed or if something else is going to be included on the Jakarta core side of things. But that's something that we should look at.
Yeah,
I agree.
So I just use the words review and consider just because it's not a spec yet. And
sure,
it's fine.
It is a spec.
Evaluate, you know, adopt, you know, leveraging the core profile. Alignment always implies misalignment, right? So just, you know, there.
So the second sub bullet point said investigate.
Wait, before we get to the second one, so is this first one? This first one's done.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, you can.
I mean, it's been a dependency ever since MicroProfile JWT existed.
Mm-hmm.
No, but it was a transitive.
So
it was not a direct dependency.
Yeah, the TCK always required you to respect roles allowed.
Yes, but it was being included transitively by I can't remember
Either
which
way,
one.
It's semantics, man.
It's solved. It's solved. So it's
okay, Emily.
So this is investigate the need for this one can be deleted. However, we could add another bullet point. Basically, is reevaluate the compatible implementation criteria, because the absence of core profile we only require the 8 MicroProfile component TCK to be passed. Once we adopt a core profile, I think we need to reevaluate compatible implementation. Maybe we should get all of the kind of the TCK included in the core profile. I mean, to pass as well.
We
Can
can
basically inherently included in this bullet, or do we specifically have to call it out in a different sub bullet?
I prefer to add another sub bullet.
I think it's too soon to add that as a goal. We need to figure out what Jakarta core profile is going to look like, and if the TCKs ends up like they are now, where they are also testing stuff on the Jakarta E platform, we're gonna back to this to the initial problem that we have, and that makes us the decision of only requiring the MicroProfile TCKs, right? That's something that we always talk that has to happen on the Jakarta side. And while one goal that you can add is work on the Jakarta side to be able to define TCKs that make that certify the Jakarta core and also makes sense to the MicroProfile environment, right? But if you have TCKs that also test AJB integration, then you're going to be on square one, right?
I don't think that's the case.
Sorry,
I don't think it's the case.
Just a time check, five minutes,
yeah.
Just to let everyone know. So go ahead, Dimitri.
No, I just wanted to say that I don't think that's the case. So TCKs for core profile have some special requirements. So I believe that these requirements are kind of aligned with MicroProfile.
If you're saying that the TCKs for core profile make sense for a MicroProfile environment, then it's okay, right? But
this is what I expect at least, but this is my opinion. Actually, if MicroProfile wants to participate in that effort, right, would appreciate it very much, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's important to evaluate. If we find something not working, surely we should bring it up.
So I think that the goal should be work with the Jakarta community to make sure that the TCKs make sense on a MicroProfile environment. Don't just go out and revisit the certification process without checking if the TCKs make sense or not.
I was going to just say, can I just say something? I was going to say evaluate adoption of Jakarta core profile plus the TCK.
Maybe that's a part of evaluate adoption of core profile bullet. Yeah. So we kind of have this goal already.
I just think is like yeah.
Okay. If you want to have sub bullet, I'm okay with that. On the other hand, I would keep goals as general as possible.
I'm with Roberto. We don't need a sub bullet. Evaluate means we will revise and check core profile, but it doesn't mean if MicroProfile finds things that we don't like on it, we're not sold into acquiring it. So let's keep it one line, simple, and then move forward. Evaluate includes everything. Let's not complicate other things. +1 to Roberto in simplification.
I really could care less whether the bullet is there or not. We're going to have to talk about it, whether or not the bullet's there.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
As long as we
I
don't
kind
forget.
of like it leaving it out too, but that's just my opinion.
Anyway, we should move on because we only have 5 minutes left or less than that.
Yeah, 3 minutes.
We can delete that line.
We never really had this discussion, well, recently, including bean validation. So I'm going to leave this here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I've discussed that there's a MicroProfile JDB feature that I'd like to add at some point, but that requires us, that uses bean validation, but that requires us to get up to 5.0 compliant, which is going to take us some time. So I don't know if that's going to happen in 2022, but when that bridge, we can cross that bridge when it comes to it, when we come to it.
All right, database.
I think we should leave that in. We haven't done much.
I will leave it in just because if we don't, well,
I would not call it database, but just data source, because database implicitly says that it is an SQL one, but you have also NoSQL.
Sorry, I was doing a bait and switch on you there, Rudy. So for this one, if we don't think we're going to get to it in 2022, we can either leave it here with kind of knowing it's not going to make it. So when we do this in 2023, it'll still be a bullet, or we remove it.
Let's leave it. It's a nice wish.
Well, we can remove it. I mean, basically, it would be tied to a MicroProfile JDBT improvement. So if we're going to write anything down, that would be the thing that we'd write down. In my opinion, I don't know of any other specs that are considering using beam validation.
I think Open API.
Oh, okay. Well then, is there an Open API bullet?
No,
I don't think so. No, maybe
that
just
would be-
yeah.
We
Just
would
a
probably
leave.
want an Open API bullet, right?
Maybe just a bracket Open API GWT.
there you go. Okay, I'm gonna move forward to database, and Rudy, go ahead.
Make a
No,
data
it's
source out of it.
Yeah, I was just saying not to specifically say a database, because that more or less implies an SQL thing, and you also have NoSQL and other types of database. So data source is probably a better name.
Or you can say database SQL and NoSQL, or any kind.
Or that, but I would keep it more open than it is defined there at the moment.
This is more like a data access, right? And not a data database per se.
Personally, I think this is less interesting than the next one.
Oh, before
doing
we get to the
all-
next one,
Okay.
Yeah, no, but if
Sorry.
we have to sort of figure out what we really want to do and what not, then I would focus on the next one and leave this one out.
I think it's better to have more goals, but we can always prioritize. We take which one first.
And I think that data source is important because of the discussion to the Jakarta and NoSQL spec, the potential transition that was discussed. So I would vote to keep it there, but I would agree for the next point. I had some addition to improve the alignment with infrastructure and platform, because the runtimes are platform technologies, and also Kubernetes, for example, is. Only with the clouds that is infrastructure from my perspective.
Yeah, I think that let's keep it like that, and then we quickly go through this, delete the LRA, and
So-
then
Sorry to interject. We are 12:02. I have a suggestion, because we can work offline on this week. How do you feel about having a call Monday and Tuesday, same time, same bat, 11, 2 hours on this, just to make sure that this is done? This is technical. We are starving for technical innovation. I think it's super important. How are others feeling about this? It means 1 extra hour for MicroProfile next week.
I don't want to call on Monday. I'm happy to continue this on the same time Tuesday.
yeah, let's do Tuesday, because I think it is a dead urgent. We are nearly there.
yeah, we are nearly there. I think Rudy and I have to kind of do a quick check on additional goals, but I think we've talked in the past about how it's really, I think, oh yeah, Rudy's still here. It's kind of already covered to a large degree, I think, in other slides.
Yeah, and we have the web infrastructure goals and website goals, which are gonna have some overlap with marketing, and we can just suss all that out.
Right.
After we nail down the technical goals at the top of the hour, we can move on to those things, close out the whole thing, hopefully.
Okay, that sounds good. then.
Yeah. So I'm gonna, throughout the week, I'm gonna be try to resolve any comments that we have in the slide deck. So that'll happen through discussions in the Google group. So I'll send out that thread, start that email thread to resolve these. And I do have to drop too, because I have to pick up my daughter from school. I have a hard stop.
Beautiful call, everyone.
Priorities, man.
Really beautiful
Yeah.
call.
Yeah,
Bye,
thank you.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, thanks
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thanks, everybody.